The Zapirian Empire had conquered 17 star systems without breaking stride. Their crystalline warships cut through space like shards of malevolent ice, and their telepathic warriors could crush most sentient minds before the first shot was fired. They had never encountered resistance they couldn't overcome until they made the mistake of taking Max. Commander Sarah, Chen was tending her small agricultural station on the frontier world of Haven's Edge when the raiders struck. The isolated human colony was barely a blip on galactic charts, home to fewer than 300 souls who had chosen the quiet life of farming exotic crops for the inner worlds. It should have been an easy target for slavers seeking to replenish their workforce. Sarah had been in the greenhouse when the alarms screamed. Through the transparent aluminum walls, she watched sleek Zapirian fighters descend like metallic vultures. Her hands moved automatically to the emergency beacon, sending a distress signal into the void before the first energy blast vaporized the communications array. Max, her 4-year-old German Shepherd mix, pressed against her leg, brown eyes alert but unafraid. He'd been her constant companion since Earth, a reminder of home among alien soil and strange stars. His tail wagged once, a gesture of absolute trust that made her heart clench. The raiders moved with practiced efficiency. Stun weapons dropped the colonists without ceremony, their crystalline armor glinting as they herded unconscious humans toward transport pods. Sarah managed to hide in the root cellar, Max silent beside her as she watched through a crack in the door. Then she saw them drag Mrs. Patterson's daughter toward the ships, the 16-year-old girl limp and vulnerable. Sarah's military training warred with her protective instincts. She was one person against a raid force, but she was also the only one left conscious. "Stay," she whispered to Max, then slipped out into the chaos. She managed to free a dozen colonists before the Zapirians cornered her. The telepathic warriors pressed against her mind like icy needles, but years of military conditioning held. She raised her rifle knowing it was futile. When Max burst from the cellar, the dog moved like liquid lightning, 70 pounds of loyalty and fury. He clamped down on the lead warrior's weapon arm, shaking with the determination of 10,000 years of breeding. The alien's telepathic assault faltered as pain and surprise broke his concentration. "Max, no," Sarah screamed, but it was too late. The second warrior's energy weapon hummed. The beam caught Max's center mass, and Sarah's companion dropped without a sound. The dog's dark eyes found hers across the smoking ground, tail attempting one last wag before going still. The Zapirians left with their human cargo, but they took Max's body too. A trophy, perhaps, or merely spite. They never imagined the beacon Sarah had triggered. 3 days later, the first human ships dropped out of hyperspace. Captain James Reaper of the destroyer Loyal Heart had received the distress signal during a routine patrol. The message was standard, until the personal addendum Sarah had managed to include. 4 words that changed everything. "They killed my dog." Reaper had served 20 years in the Terran Defense Force. He'd seen colonies burned, civilians murdered, entire worlds stripped of resources. But those 4 words hit harder than any strategic assessment. He forwarded the message with his own addition. "All TDF vessels, priority Alpha. They took one of ours." Word spread through human space like wildfire. Independent captains altered course. Military patrols abandoned their routes. Mining ships armed with improvised weapons joined the growing fleet. The underground networks that connected every human settlement, from core worlds to the darkest frontier, carried the message farther than any official channel could reach. They killed a dog. They took his human. The Zapirian commander who had ordered the raid watched the sensors with growing unease as ship after ship materialized at the edge of his patrol sector. First dozens, then hundreds. Massive dreadnoughts alongside tiny single-pilot fighters. Military vessels in formation with converted freighters sporting jury-rigged weapons. Ships that had no business being in the same space, united by something he couldn't comprehend. "What are they doing?" his tactical officer asked, crystalline features reflecting the chaos of tactical displays. The commander studied the human fleet, if it could be called a fleet. No organization, no apparent command structure. Ships from a dozen different factions that regularly fought among themselves, now moving with singular purpose toward his position. His telepathic probe touched the nearest human mind and recoiled. The thoughts weren't driven by strategy or conquest, but by something more primal. The image of a dog, dozens of dogs, hundreds, thousands of them, filled every human consciousness like a shared memory. And beneath that, a cold fury that made the void itself seem warm. They're not here for territory, the commander realized. They're here for revenge. The human assault began without warning or demand for surrender. They came from every vector at once, ships that should have torn each other apart instead coordinating with the instinctive understanding of predators sharing a hunt. The Zapirians' telepathic advantages crumbled against minds united by simple, absolute purpose. The battle lasted 18 hours. When the guns finally fell silent, the Zapirian patrol force had been obliterated. The surviving officers found themselves prisoners aboard ships that stank of determination and grief. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the flagship's detention bay, Max's collar in her hands. The Zapirian commander, telepathically muzzled now by human sci-tech, looked up at her with something approaching comprehension. "You came for one small creature," he said. "You risked hundreds of ships, thousands of lives for a single non-sapient animal." Sarah's fingers tightened on the worn leather collar. Around her, the sounds of the human fleet filled the corridors. Voices from every world humanity had touched, united in ways the Zapirians had never managed, despite their telepathic bonds. "You don't understand," she said quietly. "You never could. Max wasn't just my dog. Every human who came here today has known that bond. We don't abandon family. We don't abandon the ones who trust us completely, love us unconditionally, and ask nothing in return but food and shelter and the chance to serve." She looked at the alien commander with eyes that held the patience of a species that had once domesticated wolves. "You stole one dog, but you threatened them all. Every human in the galaxy understands that if you do it once, you do it again. So we came to make sure you never could." The Zapirian Empire's expansion stopped that day. Not from military defeat, but from a lesson learned too late. Never threaten a human's dog. Because they don't travel alone. They come with the pack that chose them 10,000 years ago and the pack that chooses them still. And that pack has starships now.